Hello, welcome to another episode of Picking the Scene, brought to you by myself in London, Orup Sen.
Yeah, it's me, Richard Garside. I'm still here out in Tel Aviv.
I haven't kicked you out.
How's things, Orup?
Very well, mate, very well. Enjoying the murky, overcast English summer. How about yourself? How's Israel?
Yeah, it's brilliant. I've been playing a bit more cricket over here. Been watching the under-21s, Euro football.
Oh yeah, we played last night, didn't we? Against Norway, was it? Or no? Am I wrong?
Yeah, England are out. They've lost to Italy and Norway. So yeah, I'm supporting Israel.
Oh dear. Well, if England's fate in the football is that bad, then I think we should probably just concentrate on the cricket. A lot of which is going on here at the moment. We've got the ICC Champions trophy on. So on today's show, we'll start with a little run through of the Champions trophy. Obviously, there's been a few matches already. I have a slight confession. We did actually record this a few days ago, but owing to some technical problems, we're having to do it again. So we'll trot through a review of the Champions Trophy, but we'll also touch on the games that have already been played. And after that, if we have some time, we'll try and round up everything else in the world of cricket.
Yeah, so if we jump straight into the Champions Trophy, first group, obviously England, the host nation. This year, Australia, almost hard to believe, are defending champions. And the first group, we've got England, the hosts. We have Australia, obviously staying over here for the Ashes later in the summer. And we have New Zealand, and we've got Sri Lanka. Yeah, I mean, if we take the hosts first, England, we should say they've already played one game. They beat Australia. I fully expected that, and I still have some worries about England in one-day cricket, just on the back of the New Zealand one-day series, which they lost 2-1 coming into this tournament. I had some worries about the fielding, which I thought was very lax. I also had some worries about the impetus at the top of the order. I guess the end result of that, I just felt with that kind of lack of urgency, it'd be hard to push many scores much over 300.
I mean, if we just look at the top three batsmen in that game against Australia, you had Alistair Cook getting 30 from 42, you had Ian Bell getting 91, good knock it was, but from 115 deliveries, and Jonathan Trott getting 43 from 56. So yeah, you're right in saying that there probably wasn't a terribly high strike rate there.
I think Jonathan Trott epitomises it. Is he actually droppable? Even in test match, he's been accused recently of a lack of urgency. But I think, people look at his test average, I think it's around 50. You can't really argue with that in tests.
No.
In one dayers, I think it's also hard to argue with, because if you look at his strike rate, a lot of the time he is scoring at a run a ball. If he gets a 60, 70 or above, it usually works out about a run a ball. I just think the first part of his innings, he starts so slowly.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't go on to make a big score, he's just wasted 10, 15 overs.
Sure. Whereas, like in India, a side like India, really, regardless of the conditions, they're normally going to aim for about 300. I think England, for me, their management are sort of stuck in that 90s mindset where like 250 is a good score. And fine, it proved okay against Australia, but as we've said, Australia are quite miserable at the moment. But if we move on now to the other teams in the group, there's New Zealand, who England have just finished 2 back-to-back ODI series against, and also Sri Lanka. These two teams actually played each other just a couple of days ago, with New Zealand very marginally coming out on top, winning by 1 wicket, in which was
brilliant game.
Yeah, bit of a game. So how did you view that one, Rich?
They're both really tidy, limited overs outfits, and that's why I'll say now that I expect those two to go through, even ahead of England.
Right.
And I should say Australia, you may not think it's the biggest shock, but this is the first time I can ever remember. I'm happy to come out and say that Australia won't win this. I don't think they've got a slight chance of winning the tournament. I've never said that before any international tournament.
Yeah, as you say, it's sad, isn't it? I mean, almost the less said about the Australians, the better, really. But no, it's certainly the first time in a while that they've been so massively out of contention, and so seemingly woefully inadequate in really all departments. I mean, it's not really been very fun to watch them. But so who are your predictions from that group, Rich?
Yes, I'm going New Zealand, Sri Lanka to go through.
Okay, cool. I'm still going to go with I think my original. Well, I might amend my original predictions. I initially said in our first now sort of failed recording, I said England and Sri Lanka. Now I'm going to be a bit of a sort of a last minute changer here. I'm gonna stick with England because I do think the home advantage is going to matter, and I think if England can get a little bit of win behind them, then they should be good to qualify. But I'm going to switch from Sri Lanka to New Zealand. So my two are England and New Zealand. If we move on to Group B, which is out of the two groups, I think putatively regarded as the much harder one.
Group of death.
The group of death, exactly. The group, one of them being the group of life, the other one being the group of death. There's just two alternatives, it seems. In that group, we've got the West Indies, India, South Africa, and Pakistan. Again, we've had one round of games already. The Indians beating the Saffers by 26 runs, and West Indies beating Pakistan in a pretty close match actually by 2 wickets. South Africa also beat Pakistan yesterday by 67 runs.
Which means Pakistan are out.
So our predictions for this one might fall flat a little bit because the group does already seem to have been taking shape.
We've got 3 teams now to choose from.
Sure.
But before we go on to them, let's just look at Pakistan for a second.
Sure. It's funny that you say they're out today, and I look at the table and they are out, and that's almost snuck up on everyone. I think really, it's just gone from being a very narrow loss against the West Indies, which was a game I think they probably thought they would have won, to a bit of a trouncing against South Africa, and suddenly it's all over. It's all over before they even get to play India. I think the result that sent them out is this loss against the West Indies. Really, if we look at that, they lost by 2 wickets. And it's their batsmen that have let them down in that particular game. Musbah aside, who got 96 not out. Pretty much everyone in their top, in their top order and middle order failed.
Wahab Riaz. I've not really heard his name for the past 2 years, and he just turns up at this tournament.
I thought before the tournament that the winners of this would come from Group B. I think there's been very little to suggest that that's not actually going to be true. What do you think, Rich?
Yeah, I think India and West Indies, I said originally, will go through. I'll stick by that.
I think I'm going to go for India, South Africa. I think South Africa. It's a bit of a gamble to say that you put your money on South Africa, progressing in in any kind of tournament really. But I think that it's going to be a kind of a battle of the chokers really in South Africa against West Indies in a few days' time.
I think India, to me, I'm going to go for India to win the tournament. They just seem head and shoulders above everyone. You backing me up on that, really?
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think the seam attack just looks a lot more strong. I mean, today against the West Indies, Ishant Sharma bowled better than I've seen him bowl in a long time. He had an economy rate of 2 or 3, I think, after his 10. Umesh Yadav has got express pace. He is very quick. He's been kind of expensive, so I think that people do need to look at that. But he does get wickets, and he picks up wickets against the South Africans in the first game. And then my favourite bowler is probably the least paciest of the lot, but Bhuvaneshwar Kumar. He bowls at a kind of your low 80s in terms of pace, but he can swing it both ways, and he's very accurate. He's got a lovely action. He has great seam presentation, good Yorker, very kind of Jimmy Anderson line and lengths and seam presentation about him. He's a young kid. He's also good in the field. He can come in at number 9 and hit a few runs. He's a player that I'm really going to be looking out for. I think he's a slightly quicker, slightly fitter, slightly better version of Praveen Kumar, who a lot of English fans would have seen a couple of years ago when the Indians toured here in 2011. Right, so we're just going to round up everything that's going on in the world of cricket at the moment. On today, the 11th of June 2013, I want to bring in a new feature, a new regular feature now. So we generally record these on a particular date, and I just want to sort of look back through the annals of cricketing history and find out if there's anything of particular interest that happened on the day that we recorded. So first time around today, 11th of June, if I have a little look, I can look back and see that on today in 1938, Dennis Compton scored his first Test match 102 against Australia. Aged, how old do you think he was, Rich? Dennis Compton, 1938.
I know he played on both sides of the war, so I'd say that's maybe the start of his career. I don't know, maybe in his 20s.
Very close. 20 years old and 19 days. So. Okay. He's beaten his grandson there to get in his first century by 9 years, is he? I think Nick Compton's about 29, was he, when he got his first
he's
Test match century?
And
And also today, on the 11th of June, in 1975, surely one of everyone's favourite ODI players, it was the ODI debut for the Pakistani batsman Javed Miandad, and he made his debut at a declared age of 17 years and 364 days. Now, not without wanting to exercise too much of my Indian prejudice towards Pakistanis, but they always seem like they're 17, no? I thought most Pakistanis, when they make their debut, are 17, regardless of whether they're 35 or whatever. So I'm not believing this one too much. But those are things that happened today in history in the world of cricket. So moving on, we're gonna have a little look at the Ashes and what we've got to look forward to this summer. We've had a lot of chat about Australia and the problems that they've been having in the one-day format. It's yet to be seen how they'll perform in English conditions. It could actually be quite conducive to their sort of bowling, particularly if they decide to go with James Faulkner, who's got a left arm over the wicket, gets a bit of swing, a bit of a Zahir Khan action about him. For me, that's the only area that I think the Aussies can really, really compete. And I think that, we were talking about the first test, it's in Trent Bridge. That first day is going to be critical, isn't it? If the Aussies win the toss, maybe put the English into bat on an overcast day, get a few wickets, maybe get England at sort of 150 for 5, 150 for 6 or something at the end of the first day, suddenly the complexion of the series could change.
Yeah, I think Trent Bridge swings a lot.
It does, yeah.
Someone told me it had something to do with the new stand as well somehow.
Right, well, that's interesting.
The effect of the new stand they've put in, and I think you need to be a scientist really to really figure that one out. But
sure.
Totally with you on the bowling. And like you say, that I would say they're just more inexperienced, the Aussie bowlers, and you can't really fault them for that.
No.
Just not being able to see how they develop over a period of time.
It's interesting you mentioned the experience there, because I think that's going to be a big factor as well. And I'm just looking down at the Australian squad and seeing how many players have actually played Ashes tests, basically. So I think that coming in, as we said before, like often the form book is thrown out the window when you come into an Ashes series. And just looking at the Aussie squad, they've literally, this is number of players that have ever played an Ashes test before, right? They've got Michael Clarke, they've got Brad Haddin, they've got Peter Siddle, Shane Watson, Philip Hughes, and Ryan Harris. That is it. And Usman Khawaja. Usman Khawaja's played one game, but I don't know if he's going to get a look in here.
Yeah.
So that is a huge amount of inexperience. And furthermore, if we look at those that have played Ashes tests in England, well, Ryan Harris and Usman Khawaja have never done that. So even fewer a number of people. Just Clarke, Haddin, Siddle, Watson and Hughes have actually played Ashes tests in England. So there's a huge number of players in that squad that are terribly inexperienced.
Considering the fact England are in possession of the Ashes and they won in Australia last time, considering the fact all of Australia's problems and the recent form, and also considering the massive gap in experience and the home advantage, I don't see how you can place England anything other than massive favourites for this Test series.
Yeah.
Whatever happens, but you're just plain ignoring the fact. If you do that, it doesn't mean you need to predict 5-0 white.
Sure, no, I agree.
You can say like
heavy favourites. So you're going to stick your neck out and go for a prediction on this one, Rich? I mean, we've done it before. I think what we said before was you'd gone for 3-1 in the past. Is that correct?
I'll stick with 3-1. I'll stick with 3-1. I think there'll be a draw along the way. It'll probably rain at Old Trafford.
Sure.
It does.
I think I'm going to go for 3-0 myself. So I reckon two will fall foul of the weather. Well, I think that's pretty much going to wrap up. Well, that'll be it for this episode of Picking the Team. Please follow us on Twitter at Picking the Team, and if you have any queries, please tweet them to that address at Picking the Team. Also, if you have any longer things you'd like to say to us, email them to us at pickingtheseam@gmail.com.
We'll definitely read them all out.
We will definitely.
Step of doing that, and same with the comments. Get your predictions in there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, from me in London, it's goodbye.
Yeah. Goodbye for now. From me in Tel Aviv.
Cool. See you next time.
See you next time.